So, hi everyone, and welcome to today's event, Insurance Peer-to-Peer Challenges of Cloud Migration. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in our event today. You should see a box in the upper right corner of your desktop. This is your control panel. You are listening in using your computer speaker system by default. If you would prefer to join us by phone, just select telephone in the audio tab and the dial-in information will be displayed. Some of you have been selected to be able to share your webcam for today's event. You can turn on your webcam by going to the webcam on your control panel and select Share My Webcam. If you would like to be a participant in sharing your webcam, please send us a note through the questions or the chat pane. You do have the opportunity to submit questions to our panelists today, or I guess everyone that's here on the call, and just go ahead and submit those through the chat option or the question pane, and we will address them. I will send them over to our fearless leader, Brian, and he will address them for us. And basically, that is all my housekeeping. If any questions come out throughout this event, please feel free to send a chat, or if you're having any technical issues, and I will get right on top of that. I would like to now introduce you to Harry France with QA Consultant.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. As you may recall, many of you had originally signed up to do the March event in Toronto, our roundtable peer-to-peer. It was very heavily attended. We had about 70 people that were registered, but unfortunately, with the advent of the pandemic, we were forced to cancel this event, and we moved to more virtual events, which are the way of life in today's world. So we will continue with a variety of topics in the future, including things like AI, automation factory, quality engineering, and other relevant topics. The big thing that I hear in discussing conversations with C-level executives every single day is show me the how. They're really confused about where to go, how to do it. So we are spending a lot of our time right now sitting with our customers and our potential customers to walk them through and show them how to do it, and more importantly, how other customers have done it. You know, the things that have worked, things that haven't worked, and you know, you learn a lot from the things that have worked. As QA consultants is an industry leader in QA to consult or the testing, we get asked dozens of times to promote these types of events, which provides you, the attendees, with relevant information from other sales organizations all across North America, and the opportunity to meet your peers. So it really allows you to build relationships so you can connect with other people and have ongoing conversations to learn from each other and promote that ongoing. We will continue to deliver this type of thought leadership throughout 2021. So Brian and I are looking at doing many of these in 2021 with different topics. We look forward to your participation and interaction during this virtual event. At this point, I'll turn it over to Brian.
Thanks, Harry. I'll start with saying this is kind of a, as Harry said, this was originally supposed to be in person, so it's a facilitated play date for everyone. It was supposed to be over a happy hour in the evening, but feel free to take yourselves off mute and turn on your cameras if you'd like. And again, send anything you'd like me to ask on your behalf. You can just send it to me in the chat window, and I'll be happy to do so. We had a number of requests as we had originally planned to do this before the pandemic around what other companies are doing, what we're seeing in the space, especially around cloud architecture within insurance applications. So all of you, again, it's kind of a facilitated activity. All of you are executives and leaders in the insurance space, inside and outside of QA. But all in some point related to the work that we're all doing together. So we've had questions around what does it mean when applications are moving to the cloud? How does it impact QA? How does it impact dev environments or environments in general? Test data and data management overall. Integration to on-premise systems from cloud and hosted systems as well. And certainly concerns over what is the future of QA in particular. When those systems are governed and controlled by development vendors and product vendors. So for format for today is open discussion. I'll happy to facilitate anything you all need me to, but would certainly encourage you all to bring up topics or speak openly. And certainly, again, it's a kind of a forced networking. We're all trying new things under COVID, so happy to make any direct introductions. We'll have a couple of things at the end as well around closing remarks and next steps. I have to certainly thank Katie and Microfocus for providing lunch for everybody. It's kind of a delayed lunch, so as soon as we're done here, you all get a gift card for lunch on us in the future. But certainly feel free, and thank you all for taking a valuable hour out of your time. What I'd like to do is also note that there was a LinkedIn event online, and I'll make sure that I can send that to you. Again, this is about facilitating just networking collaboration between you all. We QAC and don't have to be involved in that. So we do have a LinkedIn page set up online for you all that you can use as a way to network or keep the conversation going if we need to. Just let me know, and I think it's restricted, so we can let you in and you know, keep others out. But it's not a public group. So with that, what I'd like to do is I'm just going to go through the list to help facilitate some introductions. So we'll just go down the attendee list. I would appreciate if you just say hello. Your video is optional, but encouraged. I will do kind of a lightning round intro. So I'll call on you to say your name, the company you work with, and the current status of your cloud migrations, or what is interesting to you about this, and then we can move on from there. As soon as the introductions are done, as quickly as you all want to go through it, I have a couple of questions prepared to kick this off, but I'll let everyone jump in if they've got something to say. So with that, I'm going to start with our hosts, and I'll start with Mike Dykoff, who first to join, first to speak. I'll turn it over to you for a quick introduction, Mike.
Hi there, my name is Mike Dykoff. I work at Avari. Avari is a life insurance company, and previously Transamerica Life Canada. I'm the Vice President of Application Development and Enterprise Architecture. And with respect to our state of cloud migrations, I'd say we're well on the journey, have been for several years. There are a few drivers behind that, which I can get into a little later if it comes up over the course of the conversation. But yeah, I've been with Avari about 20 years and excited to speak with you all.
Thank you, Mike. Michael Bepko.
Hi, I'm Michael Babko. I work for Amica Insurance, property casualty in the States. We're based out of Rhode Island. And I'd say we're kind of midway through our cloud journey with some stuff that's been out there for a few years, mostly Salesforce, but Guidewire is our big project right now, and we're just on the verge of trying to get Billing Center moved to the cloud. So certainly some very interesting, thoughts I hope are brought up here around kind of inherited quality, right? So like you guys were saying, each of these vendors seems to come to the table with different varying levels of intrinsic quality. And we're definitely seeing some differences between the vendors. So curious how people are dealing with that, as well as data. It's a huge black box for us right now and figuring out how we're going to deal with data.
Thank you, Michael. Michael McGovern. Yep, you're on mute, Michael McGovern. Yeah, Michael.
Hey, Michael.
Sound like a robot.
You sound like a robot.
Be sensitive. That may be his real voice.
I was just, yeah.
Okay, try again.
Well, let's do this. Yeah. Sorry, Michael. I'll move on for a second, and then we'll come back. Cam, are you able to speak?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So Cam McCuskey, I'm from Wawanesa Mutual Insurance. As far as the cloud journey is concerned, Wawanesa is just starting it to an extent, although we've been working with Guidewire specifically for, I guess, the past 9 years. We've moved our entire P&C platform, policy billing claims, onto Guidewire. And over the past year and a half, we've been working on signing a cloud contract to move that installation to Guidewire Cloud, which we are kicking off in January of next year. Very interested in the conversation, specifically around quality assurance and the impacts or strategies around how do you test something that you've built over the last 9 years that has documentation or a lack thereof with regards to the quality assurance practice, and how do we regression test and ultimately have a successful deployment. And I can definitely empathize with Michael from Amica around data access with cloud technologies, et cetera. So interested in the conversation.
Thank you, Cam. Jay Davidson.
Hi, everyone. Jay Davidson. I'm with Jewelers Mutual, Vice President of Technology. We also have Guidewire and have made the decision of going to Guidewire Cloud. It's probably going to be a delayed start, most likely a 2022, early 2022 initiative, and just some planning of this next year. We've moved a lot of the other kind of more utility things to the cloud. Obviously, all the Microsoft Teams, et cetera, the entire Microsoft suite is on the cloud. We have quite a few new greenfield applications, more digital applications that we're building in the cloud, and other product and services that are there as well. And a lot of those reaching in back to the Guidewire on-prem. So really, as we migrate to Guidewire Cloud, doing a little bit of re-architecture to have those then re-architected to the Guidewire Cloud, and the RAID-based cloud will be key in our mind as well.
Great. Thank you, Jay. Michael McGovern, do you want to try one more shot at it?
Can you hear me?
Ah, there we go. Perfect.
Success. Okay, I switched to phone, so hopefully I'm not as robotic-y here. Mike McGovern, Director Digital Services, Aflac Group. We're about year and a half-ish down our cloud path, similar to Jay. We've done the O365. We've got Teams in the cloud. That wasn't as easy as we thought it would be. We had to extend that to a field force of about 60,000 people, so that became kind of a licensing pissing contest for a while there. But the technology part of it went pretty smoothly. And this year into next year, we're moving some of our data into some more of the cloud, kind of building digital hubs for producers, digital hubs for customer 365 views, that sort of thing. So kind of integrating all sorts of various back-end systems into cloud data repositories for self-serve type of activities.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. What I'm going to do now, just for those, so those was the those that are on video. I'll just go down the list here for anyone else who'd like to do a quick introduction. Video is optional, so let's go with Dave Lowry.
Hey, hi everybody. I'm from Canada Protection Plan. So I actually just started with them in February, and we actually just amalgamated with Foresters, and so that just went about a month or so ago. So I started right before COVID to have fun, to mobilize the team, everybody working from home. So the team did a great job at that. We multi-cloud approach, relatively small environment compared to others that I've managed in the past. And so I head up the technology group. And so we have a mix between Microsoft for our infrastructure, cybersecurity, and then Amazon is where our commercial applications reside. So our front end has been more mature, I guess, than the back office, which is what we're in the midst of doing. So hopefully wrapping some of those things up over the next year. We have some clear paths to do that, but I really wanted to join this to get insights from everybody else and hear what you guys are doing, and yeah, learn some new things. So appreciate everybody's time.
Thank you, Dave. George Grantcharov. Okay, I'll just keep moving on. George, let me know if you get on. That would be Ray Hopkins next.
Yeah, do you hear me, Brian?
I do.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Ray Hopkins. I'm a former IT executive and I play different roles at Canadian insurance companies such as Intact, Economical, and Sonnet. My roles were around application development and policy administration projects, like large transformations. I'm currently doing consulting at Travelers. I'm participating in the Global Guidewire Implementation Program. I really like to play a delivery role within transformation programs, and I enjoy working with teams and increase their productivity using agile practices. And I'm very excited to participate in this meeting and curious to know about benefits that teams have experienced in terms of bringing the cloud and what benefits around agility and automation.
Thank you, Ray. I appreciate it. Terrence.
Hello. I will. Well, I'm just going to try and share the webcam, and oh, it's picking the wrong webcam, of course. Well, yeah, I have an actual webcam connected, but it's using the one on the laptop, so it's a bit dark there. So I work for the cooperators. I lead the quality assurance team there. We had just completed our inception for our migration to cloud as well as upgrade to Guidewire 10 when the COVID hit. It was literally, we were just going to start that week, and then it was sort of put on hold with a restart in 2021, the beginning of January. So like most people, I think we have like cloud solutions for sort of like supporting apps like Teams and Jira and that sort of thing. But this will be one of the first like major production apps to go to the cloud. Definitely interested to hear about, data concerns. Obviously, I think one of the biggest components I'm worried about is the actual data migration. I'm confident in the team to actually do the technical upgrade, but the consistency of the data is definitely one of the areas that I would think is a concern. But interested to hear for anybody that's gone through it, what they've experienced.
Great. Thank you, Terrence. Tom.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tom Doherty. I'm a part of the Riverstone Group, which is a reinsurance company dealing primarily with runoff, subsidiary of the Fairfax companies. We're about 2.5 years into our cloud migrations. Most of it was the office infrastructure at first with the Microsoft stack. We've since gone in and created a pretty significant data lake for some of our AI and machine learning aspects for insights, specifically in some of the portfolios that we deal with. And we're starting to tackle now some of the core application systems like Guidewire, which I knew was mentioned, the Sapiens platform, which is the reinsurance area, as well as OpenText, which we use for a lot of our data mining and contextual data storage. So learning a lot along the way. I would say that it's not only, from a development and skills aspect, certainly quality engineering factors into how we can look at better automation against a lot of the API signatures that are out there, because at the end of the day, you're all responsible for the integrations, not the vendor per se, and they certainly have their fair share of maturity in terms of those services that are being utilized. So kind of looking forward to the conversation and see where it goes.
Thank you, Tom. Tracy Clark. I see you trying to get off mute there, Tracy. Okay, I'll move on to Yvonne, and then we'll come back to Tracy.
Sorry,
there you are. Yeah, perfect. Go ahead, Tracy.
Timing went. So I work at Equitable. We're just starting on the cloud journey, so just looking to get information from others, but we're just sort of getting started. So we've got a ways to go.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Yvonne?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Yvonne, and I come from TD Insurance. So I straddle both the PNC and the life and health side of the business. And we just completed our Claim Center upgrade from CC7 to 10 up to cloud and with on the Guidewire platform. And we also construct a sort of a software as a service with Guidewire to support us. Our next mandate is actually to now move our billing center and our policy center over to cloud as well in the F 2021. So interested to hear all the feedback in terms of some of the experiences the team here has on the Guidewire implementation to cloud.
Thank you, Yvonne. Well said. I'll go back. Just the last one was George. Were you able to get your mic working? Give that a shot. Okay. Well, so much for a lightning round, but as fast I think as we could get it through. So I'll tell you, I wasn't really keeping score, but it seemed like obviously, and this is no surprise to myself and Harry, there's a large number of you on the PNC side and on the Guidewire side, and that certainly is due to just who we're talking to on a regular basis. There's certainly some other lines represented as well in life and so forth. So obviously a lot of you are working with Guidewire or using Guidewire and going through your journeys there for upgrades and cloud migration as well. So what I do have some questions here, but I saw a lot, at least for the 5 of you that have your cameras on, I saw your head and eyes moving as certain things were said. So this is, again, I'll be as much of a moderator as you all want me to be. But let me start by just asking if there's anyone either via the chat window or just raise your hand or just shout out if there's anybody who has an immediate question or reaction to anything anybody has said. I'd like to learn more. Again, this would be as if we were all technically sitting around having a happy hour. So if there's anybody that has an initial question, I'd be happy to let you all go first. All right, then I'm gonna facilitate. So here we go. But please jump in if there is, and let me know if you have any specific questions for anybody that has already spoken. As I was preparing for this, oh great, Dave, thank you. As I was preparing for this, today was also, and it's obviously something that's many of you and something that I follow, but today was the official release of the World Quality Report. And so I listened to that presentation this morning. One of the items, it wasn't really, they loop or lump insurance into all of financial services. So there's not a lot of data specifically available to insurance, but I did find one specific little thing that I thought would be relevant for our conversation today. It said, and this ties to many of you were talking before we started, and certainly during your introductions around the impact that COVID has had on your IT strategy and roadmap. So the conversation or the comment that was made in the report was some insurance companies who have not yet implemented digital transaction measures when the lockdown began were unable to do claims processing because their workforce wasn't physically able to process it. So the question is, do you see cloud migration and digital transformation as the same thing within your organization? If not, how are they differentiated? And either way, is there a success story or a challenge from the pandemic related to your cloud decisions and the migrations that you'd like to share? So were you impacted, by not having cloud transformation and or digital transformation having been implemented by the pandemic? So I'll first open it up. If not, I can, call on individuals.
I don't think digitization and cloud migrations are necessarily the same. I think cloud migrations can help facilitate and accelerate digitization. To me, when and it's maybe a traditional view of digital initiatives is either customer experience digitization, so on the portal side, customer engagement side, as well as business process automation on the back end. So you combine the two, you kind of get your digital transformation. what I do think that in order to do it effectively, a cloud really does accelerate that, Brian. But it's not it's not a necessarily a mandatory step in that in moving towards digitization. My perspective.
Thank you. No, thank you, Mike. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that, or have had any challenges as they've seen this? Like I said, I was in particularly the fact that they were already printing and reporting on issues with being able to process claims by not being, clearly that came from someone's personal experiences as reported in the report. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that?
So I would agree with Mike that they're not connected. There might be advantages to leveraging them. We actually had some digitization of our claims process already. After COVID, we kind of accelerated the pieces that were in flight. It was one of the projects that sort of got a little bit more emphasis as others were getting cut or reprioritized. But I don't see them as connected at all. They're actually definitely distinct teams as cooperators.
Thank you. Okay, great. Yeah, again, open for questions, or anybody has comments. I know there was a lot of, yeah, go ahead, Cam. Perfect.
All right, is that raising your hand?
That was well done. Extra lunch for you.
In Microsoft Teams, there's functionality to raise your hand, but here, I guess not.
No.
It's old school. I was just curious what everyone's thoughts are around when we talk about a cloud migration or cloud strategy. I see kind of two options there, right? There's the good old lift and shift where, yeah, we can take hardware and we can move it up to the cloud, be it Amazon, Microsoft, etc. But then there's true kind of cloud transformation where we introduce things like code as, or infrastructure as code, full CI/CD pipelines, all that good stuff. And I'm interested in what everyone's thoughts are, at least strategies towards that plan, because yes, there is a push to get onto these cloud technologies, but at the same time, if you don't transform the applications that you're moving to cloud, you probably don't get the value that you're anticipating, or at least the advantages or the sales pitch that cloud does offer. And so for us at Wawanesa, that was one of the critical decisions to move to Guidewire Cloud, because it wasn't just an upgrade or a version upgrade of Guidewire. It was moving to an entirely new technology platform, and in fact, a new version of Guidewire itself. So just curious what everyone's thoughts are on that.
Yeah, so this is Yvonne. I'm going to pipe in. I agree with you, Cam. I think you need to look at your cloud strategy from a transformation and just not a lift and shift. So as an example, when we move Claim Center up to the cloud, one of the benefits that we found was that we are able to add in notes quickly when we see a performance degradation. So I think definitely you need to consider, you need to consider some of the other benefits when you're doing your cloud strategy. And I think that was really a key point when, in the olden days, if you are at performance contention, now you got to spend days to add in a CPU and whatnot. But, when we moved to cloud and we saw the contention, all Guidewire has to do was to actually add in a few notes to reduce it. So I think you really need to look at it from that perspective. I don't think you get the benefits or really the compelling story if you're just doing a lift and shift. And I don't know if you're going to see that benefits, 2 or 3 years down the line. I think the other one thing, we're also obviously very heavy on IFRS, and we are also moving up to cloud for IFRS. For insurance, we got a lot because it was deferred, and we've decided to move it up to cloud as well for one of the product and the application or the engine itself, simply because we are able to scale. And when we want to, build up or stand up a new environment for testing, as an example. So I think that's to me, you definitely need to look at it from a strategy and just not lift and shift.
Yeah, I would add to some of the commentary around that, but I would actually offer yet another perspective to consider, right? Because I think our business players are very savvy in terms of throwing around terminology they learn in the industry and coming in through consultants. But my experience has been with several entities, including the Riverstone Group at this point, that there's an aspect of awareness around how ready your business processes are to transform. It's very easy for a vendor to come in and say, look at all these bells and whistles and favorite things, but if the underlying business processes that are in place today haven't been retrofitted or considered around where some of those efficiencies can be gained, you're not going to see the value out of doing any kind of a transformation with a cloud application. I think the other side of this equation, which I think always is overlooked, but certainly I would say my digital officer is very keen and understanding, is what you have to do to upskill the organization. A lot of our technicians today, unless they're really right out of school, have dealt with everything except cloud. It's not to say that there aren't practitioners out there learning it and being self-aware, but generally speaking, there's still an uptick in terms of what you have to do for the organization to get them trained on how to do that. You mentioned things like CI/CD and some of the automation efforts around that. DevOps is another important area. It's not, I wouldn't say it's a mandatory, but if you plan on doing any kind of local development to form integration or any kind of transformation using business process automation or any of the AI or machine learning aspects and moving it up into the cloud, definitely want to consider what you need to do to put the DevOps frameworks in place, because if anything, those are going to help alleviate the fumbling that you may do when you do on-premise type of work. There's a lot of efficiency to be gained, but again, it comes to what's the foundation of your skill set in your development organization to help support that.
Harry here, one question. You mentioned about finding cloud resources is not as easy as it sounds. When you go and look for partners, how do you qualify them and where do you find them?
Wow, that's I wish I had a capital on that market for this one.
If you guys know where to find them, let us know, because we can't find them, that's for sure.
Yeah, we've some of it's been through trial for error, right? But we have aligned with some key partners that actually assist us in those areas. So depending upon whether it's Azure or Oracle or some of the new applications that have just transitioned in, they've worked with us on helping to scope out and identify what questions should be asked and what experience levels are out there. A lot of people will say they speak cloud, and in some cases, they've got some basic tenets around it, but depending upon the nature of your business, the number of transactions, the amount of data volumes, what cloud you're in, all of those things need to be factored in when looking for a key partner, because you may go with one group that, well, they know the application well, but they're going to really gouge you when it comes to egress charges because they haven't thought about what the data volumes are and what you need on premise for any kind of reporting. Similarly, whether they've had any application experience actually developing on some of the aspects that are required for that cloud or that cloud native platform, right? There are significant differences when you're in a multi-tenant versus single tenant versus private cloud, which all have to be factored in. So, my suggestion would be you find a partner that generally understands your culture, your skill set areas, determine what experience they've had and start building it from there. Again, you may do some trial and error, but there are some very good groups out there that know their stuff and can get you over the initial hump.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom. Good answer.
That was good. Good discussion. Does anybody else have any other comments, or I'll certainly keep facilitating.
So at Jewelers, we definitely made the decision not to lift and shift. And for those things that we did want to move to the cloud, obviously if there's vendors like Guidewire to move to their SaaS offering, for those applications that are more currently on-prem homegrown that do need to move, we made just decisions of they need to be refactored or rebuilt anyway, so just rebuild them on cloud native technologies rather than just do lift and shifts. So we're in the process of doing that next year. From a cloud adoption perspective, one thing that I've learned painfully, unfortunately, is giving access to developers to start the cloud development is great and they can get started. But there's a lot of other domains that need to be cloud aware and experience as well around the network that you're going to set up within your cloud. Security aspects to make sure that there's security engineering going in at the same time. Those are foundational pieces that I would recommend you look at first before opening it up to let the developers play, because otherwise you have to come back and refactor the network and security concerns.
Thank you, Jay. Well said.
I would agree with that. We've really broadened our enterprise architect strength and presence throughout the organization, and gone as far as to actually have architecture owners within each of the development teams, whether the cloud or on-prem or some hybrid of the two, just so that people do, as they're developing, as they're testing, as they're elevating, do have an understanding of the boundaries and the guidance of what is our standard for whether it's AWS or Azure or put your brand here cloud approach. So we don't tie ourselves in the knots as we move forward. And also, this probably goes without saying, you take an iterative approach, right? There's probably some proof of concept that succeeds or not that you live through and learn from, and then push forward once the lessons are learned. Full-blown trial and error on an application or service level exercise, at least in the insurance industry, brings too much risk to make people comfortable.
Gotcha.
Baby steps.
I have a question overall for the group. What would be the top 3 things you would avoid at all cost moving to the cloud?
Well, I think Jay touched on a very important part. So those foundational pieces are definitely key, and not doing those will put you in big trouble. And especially assuming that the cloud is secure is a major mistake. So making sure that you have the right, be it control tower or secure score or whatever that is in GCP, managing the environment properly, and depending on your regulatory obligations, that those are mapped up. But I would also, back to the first question around the business processes and lift and shift to full cloud, like what are you trying to achieve? How do you do that? Do you have that mapped out with a iterative process for blue-green type deployments, immutable images? Is that lined up with the features? Is that solving the business problems that you have? Or is that a technology capability that you want for flexibility? And how is that being presented and leveraged appropriately? So yeah, I'd want to avoid delivering something that is not truly leveraged.
Great, Dave. That was a good question, Harry. Anyone else want to take that one? Top 3, top 1 things to avoid? Okay. Does anybody else have any comments or questions for anyone else who's on the panel or anyone who's been speaking? I know there was a lot of commonality, especially around the guidewire upgrades. Anybody have any specific questions for anyone else? Okay.
Just a general curiosity. Has anybody, forged down the path of cloud with a service or an application and failed miserably and said, forget it, we're going back to on-prem?
Great question. I had phrased that question a little differently. I didn't know if I should even ask, does anybody want to fail? What I had in my list of questions was, does anybody have any specific successes or challenges that they've faced, using my good consulting background there? But yes, since Michael asked it, if anyone does want to share of any, maybe they've heard of some failures that they'd like to share.
Yeah, I'll come forward and come clean. Our first venture outside of the infrastructure was to actually go about doing our financials upgrade with Oracle. And it's not that Oracle's a bad application. In fact, we had to put the program on hold, primarily because of some things I mentioned earlier around the upskilling and certainly some of the business process changes. However, I think one of the key things, and I think we kind of danced around it during the intros a little bit, is really around data. Yeah, everyone's acknowledging, data. So if the data, our challenge with getting it implemented, frankly, was not because of the application itself. It was, how do we integrate into the APIs, and what are the sequencing of events that need to occur with that data? Like I said, not all APIs are created equal when you're trying to look at the transformations. And what we discovered along the way is every application has a different maturity level with whether they use SOAP services or REST-based services, or if you have to use some other import mechanism for upload. And what we underestimated was just how ready our data was in the overall environment to be able to support the migration, but also support the daily operation. It's caused us to take a reset. One of the transformation activities we're working on right now is really a revamp of our entire data architecture, or should I say, how we're unwinding the ball of yarn that was created because it had a leather hide on it. We're actually tracing that end to end now and putting in the right data infrastructure, digitally savvy, so that now when we start to take on core systems, we know we can get into the delivery vehicle of getting it uploaded or migrated or changed, whether it be in our data in the cloud orientation and strategy, or if it be the core applications themselves. So yeah, there's failings out there. Everybody learns the good way or the bad way. And I will say I've implemented Oracle several times, and this was a first of having this kind of setback. So there are new challenges out there, and you need to be somewhat leery of whether the organization has the readiness around their data constructs to be able to support any kind of a migration.
Tom, have you looked at
thanks for
the
sharing.
Oracle Cloud? Sorry.
I'm sorry?
Have you looked at Oracle Cloud for any of those solutions? Is that something that is hosted there, and is there any synergies?
Well, Oracle's really good at what they do, and certainly they're willing to sell you anything in the world. Yes, they have solutions for many of these things. Because we are primarily a Microsoft-centric shop, the notion of putting the entire data ecosystem and architecture based on Oracle components, while it certainly, I'm sure, would work, as they were willing to throw just about everybody in the world at it to make it happen, it wasn't pragmatic or practical for some of the other core application sets we have, and certainly around the skills and experience that we had in shop. So, it definitely is food for thought. If you've got deep pockets and want to go there, you can absolutely do a bang up job. Microsoft's also doing very similar things with the Azure cloud, where they'll throw, their scientists and techs at it to help you get there. So, depending upon the big 4 or 5, depending on how you look at it, they're all willing to, to key in on that and help you. It's a question of what's, pragmatic for your organization, your culture, the skill sets you have, what you expect to gain. A real good example, not to, to dwell on Oracle, but Oracle and Microsoft have a really strong relationship in terms of their cloud centers now, where the data exchange from Microsoft on Microsoft-based and core applications has free passage, no egress charges into the Oracle backends, right?
Yeah.
Conversely, if you want to go from Oracle to Microsoft, you're going to pay a little bit, but it's based on whatever your Microsoft contracts are relative to data transfer. But so you've got to look for some of those things. And again, learnings along the way as we started to peel back the onion on getting our financial platform in place. We are, like I said, it's on hold. We are going to revisit it. Our data will be in a better place here in another 6 months to a year after we complete the IFRS migrations ourselves as well. But it was certainly eye-opening when we got to that point of having to put it on hold.
Just one last question. Was there a key mechanism or catalyst to trigger or to leverage to make that happen, the data transformation that you're going down? If you were to say like one top thing, what would that be?
Well, I can't speak for other insurance companies, but when you look at a reinsurance company, especially when you're buying books that are already upside down or tainted, or companies have gone out of business, we don't really have a say over, how complete or how, how good the data sets are. So
Yep.
for us, it was a pragmatic matter of making sure that when we could get all the data off of paper and into a digital format, shore it up, put some data governance and real good lineage around that data set, so that as we start to now introduce it into the new data architecture, we knew it had sourced from, where it's going for targets, and if there are changes, we know what we need to do to support that. Pragmatically, you've got to do that for any of the applications going to the cloud. If you don't know where that data is coming from or what the expectations are for the output, it becomes very problematic in the future, right? You basically have displaced what you used to do in warehouses full of file folders and paper storage, and you're doing it now in a digital fashion, which it might be easier to get to, but you're still creating the same problem if you don't have a catalog of sorts to help you find where it's located.
Makes sense.
Tom, thank you for sharing. And yeah, go ahead, Cam.
Just a question: when we talk about quality as a whole, or more importantly, just operational excellence, the cloud, I guess, definition is a loose one that probably encompasses both managed services, SaaS products, et cetera. And so I'm seeing a trend that I think everyone, insurer or otherwise, is going to be challenged or faced with regarding how do we maintain operational stability and we'll call it mean time to detection, or MTTR, in this cloud world. So is there any lessons learned or any experiences, or at least are we all joining hands saying, yeah, this sucks and we've got a challenge we need to face in this kind of disconnected but yet overly connected world or landscape that we're in today?
I mean, my view on that, Cam, just very quickly, is I think the days of large scale automation programs to retrofit automation across, and when I say automation, I mean quality assurance automation, test automation across your application portfolio, probably gone. Because people tend to think it's a big bang approach and it's once and done, and then of course it falls into disuse as the applications continue to evolve. I think what, insofar as operational excellence surrounding quality, you really need to build that into the SDLC itself, irrespective of whether you're using Agile, Waterfall, whatever the case is, so that as you evolve your applications, as you change your applications, your user stories have the automation of the testing of that particular feature included in it. And it's not done until that automation of the test for that particular feature is built. And as a result, what you'll find is an incremental ongoing sort of maturity of that automation bed, as opposed to, say, coming up with 500,000, 700 million to automate across your environment and then figure out that you don't have the engineers or processes in place to actually keep that evergreen. That's my view on it, but perhaps there are still, hoping for QA consultants, there's still large scale things, but I really think you need to build that into your software development process.
Well said, Mike. Cam, anything else or any other thoughts on that? Or does anybody else want to chime in on that? My ears are open for sure.
Yeah. So I appreciate what Mike is saying there. I'm also looking at it from this perspective of, again, operations, from the standpoint of you have incidents that come in, whether you call them priority 1, P1, P2, doesn't really matter, but you're now reliant on vendors for your core operations. And today, or at least in history, you'd have kind of the one throat to choke, or you're in control of the entire organizational unit in order to remediate that item. Whereas now it is quite the interconnected web of players and vendors that you have to work through or work with in order to resolve production incidents. But I totally agree with what Mike is saying, for sure.
I think from an ops perspective, the more complexity that you start having, the harder it is to have that single pane of glass. But I would slightly disagree with the single throat to choke. You still need to have that single pane of glass and then tie that back to all your vendors and SLAs and all of those other things, which is the challenge, like you're saying, when you start introducing additional IT partners or others, that complexity that starts increasing. So it's a matter of that. Ideally, the cloud journey simplifies your complexity debt, and if it's not, then you have to probably look at your IT partner sprawl and re-examine that from an ops perspective, because that's what will kill you on your incident calls. But I would say every IT partner or cloud provider should be providing transparency in terms of single pane of glass and feeding that information from a operations or cybersecurity incident response perspective. All of that needs to be accessible. Circling back to the data topic, that's another data point that all that telemetry has to be there for as a customer.
Great. Well said, Dave. So we've got about 5 minutes left. I wanted to open it up one more time. If there's anybody that either has a question or just a comment that they'd like to share for the group. I don't think I'm going to go through any more list of questions that I had prepared. You guys have all done a great job at just facilitating and bringing up comments. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to speak? A good chance to get anything off their chest that they've been wanting to say. Okay. I've got a few comments here just in terms of before we close the call. Like I said at the beginning, we've created this as a LinkedIn private event, which allows us to have an ongoing LinkedIn dialogue. If any of you would like to be part of that, you all should have received at least 1 or 2 emails from me in the last 2 days. Just let me know. And if you're not already on that LinkedIn, some of you are, and you'd like to be part of it, that could be at least a initial meeting point for you all to connect with each other. It seems like there's enough, I'll say, commonality for many of you if you want to create your own Guidewire upgrade support groups and and whatever else you all need. By all means, again, this was more of an opportunity to facilitate, just like we would if we were able to meet in person. QAC does not have to be involved in any ongoing conversations. I do hope that you all found this valuable and a chance to at least know that there's others out there. We can continue, of course, to connect you up with each other if you email me or Harry afterwards as well. Secondly, I'd like to ask, and you don't have to speak up here, but certainly privately, if you can let us know, or feel free to speak here publicly. If this type of thing, I know it's hard to do this in an hour, especially with some introductions, but if we were to meet again, we wouldn't have to do as many introductions. If you'd like to meet again, we've got plenty of other ideas and topics. We can also start segmenting it between P&C and life as well, if you'd like to see more segmentation, or do specific topics on technology groups like Guidewire or like Oracle, like we talked about, or even other concepts like ones that are very interesting to me, as well as like AI and QA and things like that. So if anybody would like to either let us know privately or let us know here if you guys would like to do this more often, we certainly could. I got a thumbs up, 2 thumbs up, very good, 3 thumbs up. All right, well that's there we go. No obligation to say it, but I really do appreciate it. Many of you have asked us to meet others and to provide more connection to others that are going through the same challenges. It doesn't all have to rely on folks like myself and Harry and the other team at QAC to let you know what we're seeing, but I think it's important to know what your peers are seeing. I had one request outside of all those things for homework before we close. So as we get towards the end of the year, and everybody's been going through certainly business challenges and changes with COVID and the pandemic, and we'll start to see what 2021 looks like, whether we see a return to the office, and obviously we're all sitting here from our homes, which is certainly very, very telling, at least those that are on video. If you all can take a moment, either right now or via email, or as you start to think about it for the next couple of hours, and shoot us a note, we'd like to know what are your crazy predictions for 2021 as it relates to this topic, whether it be insurance cloud migrations or QA through insurance cloud migrations, or QA in general in the insurance industry, or even beyond that. If you just have a crazy prediction, I'll give you one example that'll hopefully get you thinking about it. But if you can think through and send one prediction that you think, we'll of course share all this, of course, back to you all. But for example, will 2021 allow us the opportunity to see the first evidence of a complete product built by AI and tested by AI? So software testing, building, creating software to completion. Will we start to see examples like that in 2021? That would be a potential large or outrageous prediction. There's all kinds of other ones that I certainly can share. But if you can think through that, we'd love to hear and share back the feedback. Otherwise, like I said, thank you all for taking the time. We're right at the hour. Appreciate it. Lunch is on us and on Micro Focus, so thank you to them for providing that. You'll get that in via email. And access to this as a recording will also be available. So if you want to go back and say, who was it that said that, or I want to follow up with that person, you'll be able to do so. Again, I'm here to make direct introductions and facilitate any conversations. If you'd like to meet with anybody, you don't have their contact information. We would do that anyway if we were all sitting around at a bar. So thank you all, and I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time. Have a great day, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.